Bishalach b'cheilech shalva yamino ta'im Bishalach b'cheilech shalva yamino ta'im Shalom b'cheilech shalva yamino ta'im Shalom b'cheilech shalva yamino ta'im. Yiratzon that the limud should be the refuat. Tanya Matoda Maglit, Moriva Rabbi Yehuda. After 3 Parshat of dealing for so long with leaving exile, the pain of exile, the process of leaving exile, we enter in this Parshat Bishalach, the well-awaited redemption. And the obvious question that we ask ourselves is, what is the actual definition of redemption? Does redemption mean Exodus? Does it mean that there's no more pain, there's no more Egypt? Or maybe is there a deeper and greater understanding of what actual redemption means? And in order to understand redemption, we have to realize that after the Jews leave Egypt, Egypt does not leave them. After they have released themselves from slavery, they have still not left the identity of a slave. And so as they get to Kriyat Yamsuf, they realize that although they left the practice of slavery, they left the place of slavery, they are still in the mindset of a slave. And so actually Kriyat Yamsuf is revealing to us that there is so much more to redemption than just leaving the situation. And when we read Shirat Hayam, there is one thing that's apparent that's so much different than anything we have seen from the beginning of Tanakh. And that's Shirat Hayam. And when you look at Shirat Hayam, before you even learn Shirat Hayam, it stands out that for the first time, there are much more spaces than words. From Breshit until Shirat Hayam, there are many words of Hashem. There are many concepts that are taught. Suddenly, when we get to Shirat Hayam, there is so much more space than words. And the Sfat Emet tries to understand what is the significance of these spaces. So says the Sfat Emet in the year 1890, B'inyan HaShira, what was the true secret of Shirat Hayam? Sheyesh parshiyot miyuchadin legeula. There are special parshot for redemption. Lachen bashira yesh parshiyot, meaning spaces, bekol pasuk u bekol shura. Says the Sfat Emet, these spaces are much more than just a blank white line. They reveal that what's more important in Shirat Hayam is that for the first time, it's not about what Hashem was saying, because Hashem writes the words. The redemption was the first time where what's more significant is the role, the place that people play, and not the words and the guidance of God. So the Sfat Emet makes a distinction between the words and the space. The words are what Hashem reveals. The space is what's waiting to be revealed, saying essentially that the idea of Shirat Hayam was not what Hashem was saying, but what he was demanding of the Jews. Redemption is not that someone saves you. In Egypt, God saved us. In Aseret Makot, God saved us. At Shirat Hayam, Hashem said a message for future generations that we say every day in Tefillah Shirat Hayam. The significance of Shirat Hayam is Hashem is saying, I'm waiting for you. I want you to recognize that I gave you the opportunity, but I will not make the end goal and I will not make the final decision. I opened the gate for you. I gave you the beginning of redemption, but the continuation is in your hands. The decision, what you do with what I gave you, is the essence of redemption. Not that you're waiting for God to save, but that you're using the opportunity that He gave you. And to just better understand this a little bit more, the story right after Shirat Hayam is an amazing story. Vayatsa Moshe et Yisrael mi Yamsuf. We leave Yamsuf. Vayitzu midbar Shur. Vayilchu shloshet yamim bamidbar v'lo matzu mayim. The second they leave Shirat Hayam, they leave Kriyat Yamsuf, they're faced with the challenge of the lack of water. And when they see the challenge, Am Yisrael make the wrong decision. Vayavo marata v'lo yachlu lishtot. Vayilonu ha'am al Moshe le'emor ma nishteh. The moment after Kriyat Hayam, the Jewish people are faced with a challenge that is not external. There are no Egyptians. There's just no lack of water. Do you solve or do you ask someone else to solve your problem? Vayilonu ha'am al Moshe, you solve our problem. We can't solve the problem. We aren't those white spaces. We don't believe that we could create. We don't believe that we could solve. We don't believe that we could change. We need you, which means that they are not fully in redemption. They felt it at Shirat Hayam. They realized that they could influence the Torah. They could influence redemption. And then when they're faced with the challenge of the lack of water, do you solve the problem or do you wait for a solution? And here they fail. Now they wait for a solution. But what does God say? Hashem says to Moshe, Vayoreu Adonai etz, vayashlech el hamayim, vayimtaku hamayim. When Hashem sees that the water is bitter, He says to Moshe, take a tree, uproot it, throw the tree into the water, and the water will become sweet. When I learned this for the first time, when I was 8 years old, I asked myself, can you just pour a bag of sugar to make the water sweet? Why do you uproot a tree and throw it into the water? But Hashem is educating the people. The tree is resembling the people. And it's saying to them, when you meet the mar, when you meet the difficult, do you uproot yourself? Do you uproot the tree, the person, and solve the problem? Do you take a tree, ki adam etz hasadeh, and do you take that person and say, you can solve the problem. You can solve the bitter waters. You now are capable of creating your redemption and not waiting for it. And I think both these ideas come together. Shirat Hayam says that true redemption is the white space where Hashem says, I'm giving you room to solve. I'm demanding of you to realize your responsibility through redemption, not just your privilege because of redemption. You're responsible now. You're capable now. You aren't just privileged. And the first experience after Yam Suf is you meet bitter waters. You meet bitter experiences. You meet a difficult world. You meet a hardship, a difficulty in relationship, a bad grade on a test, a challenge in the land of Israel. Do you wait for solutions or do you stand up and solve? And the message of redemption is that changing the situation is just the beginning. But the true redemption is, can you solve problems? Or do you wait for someone else to solve your problems? Just to end the idea, I was sitting with one of my greatest students today, and he had tears in his eyes. And I said to him, why are you crying? He said to me, Yair, I made a decision. So I said to him, what decision did you make? So he says to me, I decided I'm going to the army. So I was like, why are you crying? He said, because I'm not going to the army. I'm going to the most elite unit in the army. For him, the idea of going to the army was a decision not just to see what we get and what we gain, but to recognize that what we give is our greatest gain. That's the definition of redemption. Do we wait to receive, or do we recognize that once we received, creating, giving, changing, and solving problems is the greatest accomplishment and the deepest privilege in anyone's life? We shall be zocheh to have a Shabbat that we recognize that when the water splits, the people walk through. And as the people walk through, they realize that it's not anymore waiting, but it's the time to start creating. And we should have a nation and a generation that recognizes the opportunities that we have had since we received so much, to stop asking the question of what we receive and use what we have received to create and generate energy into a world that waits for us and not only for someone else to solve their problems. Shabbat Shalom.